Every car on this list solved a problem no other manufacturer was even trying to solve. Sometimes brilliantly, sometimes disastrously, and in one case almost 100 years before the rest of the industry caught up to the idea. This is a rundown of 5 cars that don't really have direct competitors, because nobody else ever attempted what they were built to do. The Dymaxion wasn't designed by a car company at all. Buckminster Fuller, the architect and inventor best known for the geodesic dome, built it as part of a much bigger idea, a vehicle he described as a zoomobile meant to be an early step toward vehicles that could eventually leave the road entirely. What he actually produced was a 20-foot-long, three-wheeled aluminum teardrop with a rear-mounted Ford V8 engine, front-wheel drive, and rear-wheel steering, capable of carrying 11 passengers, hitting 90 miles per hour, and returning around 30 miles per gallon, genuinely remarkable efficiency for 1933. Only 3 prototypes were ever built, and the project's momentum collapsed after one of them was involved in a fatal crash at the 1933 Chicago World's Fair, which triggered enough public concern about the design's stability that it never came close to production. Fuller always maintained the crash was caused by another vehicle colliding with the Dymaxion rather than any inherent flaw in his design, but the damage to public confidence was already done. What survives is one of the earliest serious attempts at radical automotive aerodynamics, built nearly a decade before most manufacturers started taking wind resistance seriously at all. McMurtry Automotive's Sperling looks like a small single-seat racer, and on paper its numbers are impressive but not unbelievable. Around 1,000 horsepower, a sub 1.5 second 0 to 60 time, a 60 kilowatt-hour battery. What makes it genuinely unlike anything else on the road is a system called downforce on demand. 2 centrifugal fans mounted behind the driver's seat that actively suck the car toward the ground, generating over 2,000 kilograms of downforce, more than a Formula One car produces at speed, available even when the Sperling is standing completely still. In 2022, the Sperling shattered the outright Goodwood Festival of Speed hill climb record, a benchmark that had stood since a McLaren Formula One car set it in 1999, making it the first fan car to compete in sanctioned motorsport since 1978. Then in April 2025, McMurtry did something no road-relevant car has ever done. They mounted the Sperling on a specially built rotating rig and drove it fully upside down, suspended entirely by its own fan-generated downforce, with nothing else holding it to the surface. It wasn't a simulation or a rendering. It was a real car, genuinely hanging upside down under its own aerodynamic force, which is not a sentence that's ever been true of another production vehicle. Messerschmitt built some of Germany's most advanced fighter aircraft during the Second World War, and when the post-war Allied occupation banned the company from manufacturing aircraft at all, its engineers redirected that same design, thinking towards something almost comically small, a tandem 2-seat microcar with a clear plastic canopy that lifted up like a cockpit for passengers to climb inside. The KR-200 ran on a motorcycle-derived engine as small as 191 cubic centimeters, seated its 2 passengers front to back rather than side by side, and steered with an aircraft-style handlebar instead of a wheel. It's easy to dismiss the KR-200 as a novelty, but Messerschmitt actually built around 30,000 of them over a 9-year production run, making it one of the most commercially successful microcars to come out of post-war Europe's fuel and material shortages. It remains one of the strangest direct lineage stories in automotive history, a car whose entire design language traces back to aircraft engineering, built by a company that wasn't legally allowed to build the aircraft it actually specialized in. In 2013, a private collector approached Rolls-Royce with an unusual request: build one car entirely to his own specification, inspired by his personal collection of vintage yachts and 1920s coach-built Phantoms, with no plan to ever build a second one. Rolls-Royce agreed, on the condition that neither side would discuss price until the car was actually finished. It took 4 years. The result, unveiled in 2017 at the Concorso d'Eleganza on Lake Como, is a 2-door coupe with a panoramic glass roof sweeping back toward a tapered rear deck styled to echo the lines of a private yacht, hand-finished in Macassar ebony and polished wood inside, with every control deliberately concealed to keep the cabin surfaces uninterrupted. Rolls-Royce never officially confirmed the price, but multiple outlets have reported figures between roughly $13 and $13.2 million, making it, at the time, the most expensive new car ever commissioned. There is exactly one Sweptail in existence. It was built around the taste of exactly one buyer, and Rolls-Royce has been clear that it will never build a second. Built in Czechoslovakia starting in 1934, the Tatra 77 looked like nothing else on the road at the time. A smooth, rounded, aerodynamic body with a single dorsal fin running down the center of the roofline, a rear-mounted air-cooled V8, and a drag coefficient low enough that it remained competitive with cars designed decades later. Tatra's engineers, led by Hans Ledwinka, treated aerodynamics as a genuine engineering priority years before most of the industry paid it any real attention. The car's real legacy is the controversy that followed it. The Volkswagen Beetle, developed a few years later under Ferdinand Porsche's direction, shared a strikingly similar rear engine, air-cooled layout, and rounded profile, and Tatra pursued the matter legally after the war, eventually reaching a settlement with Volkswagen over the resemblance. Whatever the exact truth of that influence, the Tatra 77 remains one of the clearest cases of a relatively obscure manufacturer producing genuinely original engineering that a much more famous car may have quietly borrowed from. What ties these five together isn't a shared shape or a shared era. It's that every one of them exists because someone refused to build the version everyone else was already making. A geodesic dome architect designing a car, a fighter plane manufacturer barred from making planes, a Rolls-Royce built for an audience of exactly one person. None of that happens inside a normal product roadmap. If there's a specific, unique, or one-off car you think deserves its own full episode, let us know in the comments and subscribe for more deep dives into the strangest machines the automotive world has ever produced.